Started. Morning. We'll give everyone who registered another minute to join us, and then we'll get the webinar started. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for today's webinar. I present now to you CEO of INRS Enterprises, Mr. Mike Carpenter.
Thanks, John. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are very excited to show you what we have been working on for over a year in building our data warehouse and then partnering with Onware to get the analytics and reporting on top of it. Just a little background, INRS has been in business since 2009. We're a premier provider of solutions to the construction industry, offering both field and back office solutions, custom development, and now a data warehouse on top of that. We're very proud of the products and tools that we've built and hope that you remember us to reach out so that we can partner with you when you have data needs. That said, what we're going to talk about today is our data warehouse and the reporting and analytics that are available on top of that. You guys all know that business is about understanding your data. If you can get a good understanding of your data from the past and current, and then apply that to the future, then you can keep your company more profitable and stay ahead of the curve. It's not just about your job costing data, your AR, your AP, it's all of it. It's your other systems. We have partnered with Procore, PM Web, Win Rentals, and integrated their offerings into our database with other clients. So not only do you get that snapshot from your ECMS of where your business is at, you can also see it from your other third-party systems. Along with the current data, the historical is the important piece to look at as well. And when I reference that, what I mean is you can look and go, our current budget for this job is $1 million, and the change orders for 200,000 on top of that. But when did it happen? How did it happen? Who did it? What was going on with that? As part of our data warehouse, we have built a layer inside of that. So you have not only just the current information, but you also have that historical. So that when we update that budget, you can see that it originated on the 1st with this dollar amount. On the 5th, it got changed to this. On the 10th, it got changed again to this and by who. So you can get that historical reference information that's critical for you to make business decisions and potentially head off problems before they even start. We're good with the data, and that's what we did. We built the data. Onware and Fraser, who's going to be presenting to you, are experts in the reporting and analytics space. And I saw no reason for us as INRS to try and go out and build that when we already had a partner with such an extensive skill set. So we met with them early on this, brought them in, and gave him access to what he needed, started adding things to that data warehouse to make his job easier to build the reports that you guys need, and the analytics, etc. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fraser. And, actually messed up. I forgot to give you guys our shameless plug. We have another webinar on July 9th for our partnership with Arcora for our HRIS integration. So that's onboarding, benefits, deductions, direct deposits, everything you need to onboard an employee into ECMS. So that's July 9th. So we hope you all can attend that. And with that, I'm going to now turn it over to Fraser and let him explain to you the tools and products that they've got set on top of the data warehouse to make information reporting easier for you. So Fraser, it's all yours.
All right, thank you so much. I'm just gonna see if this works. You guys can hear me. You can see my screen, I'm hoping.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, so let's get started here. Thanks, Mike, for the introduction. As Mike mentioned, our company's called Onware. We have been around for 20 plus years now. We started off as a software development firm. So we were building tools to handle like RFIs and change management for the construction industry. And about 15 years ago, somebody kind of came to me and said, have you guys heard of some of these BI tools like Tableau? And I said no. And so I went and checked it out and started building some stuff in Tableau. And now it's about 75% of our business is actually doing business intelligence consulting. So we're primarily focused on the construction industry and building tools to help with that. That's me. I'll just mention I kind of split my time between Edmonton and Houston. My family's in Edmonton, but we do a lot of work out of our Houston office these days. So that's why I'm here a lot of the time. And tend to work on kind of the back end stuff a little bit more and setting up solutions than anything else these days. Our BI team, our analytics team is the ones that shine. They all have a really deep and diverse skill set with different tools and things. So they're the ones that really manage the day-to-day and execution on our projects. So they're there. We also have our custom software team that kind of continues to build out the software tools. So it's a bunch of different things that we do, but let's go past our team and talk about you guys. So the monthly workflow, this is kind of a typical thing that we hear a lot of the time, is you're kind of nearing the end of the month, you're working on month end. What are the things that you have to do to kind of get that completed? And more often than not, we hear about this workflow where you're logging into the ERP, navigating to a report, downloading that report to Excel, putting it in the right place. Is it going in your SharePoint? Is it going on your network drive? Now navigating to Excel, opening that file, doing some formatting, removing the extra stuff that you don't need, turning on data filters, filtering out the data that's not relevant. Then taking that, copying and pasting it into another Excel potentially, or another workbook, because that's where you've got all your formulas, your VLOOKUPs, and your crosstabs to kind of get the results that you're looking for. And then after you've done all of that, you're, potentially copying and pasting the results into other formats like a PowerPoint presentation, sending it out to others. It's a very manual process, and it has to be done multiple times. So, maybe you're doing this for multiple project managers. Maybe you're doing this for multiple jobs. It becomes a lot of work. And so when we think of that, I just mentioned, it's labor intensive. There's many steps. You also have to document this manual process. In case of staff changes or people going on vacation, you have to write everything down. If there's data changes, if that report somehow changes, it could easily break things in your Excel spreadsheet. Other people could easily break things in your Excel spreadsheet. That's what we hear a lot of. People don't copy and paste correctly, or they start messing with formulas. And just the repetition is in doing this multiple times. There's a lot of challenges with this kind of workflow. And so, many times we're engaged to do, some basic automation using the BI tools. If you go from, a static report to a dashboard, you can start encapsulating a lot of that formatting work that you're doing. The filters, those formulas, all from Excel become part of your dashboard. So when you're getting new data, say on a nightly basis, you don't have to go through all those steps anymore because it's all built into your dashboard. The other big advantage of the BI tools is that the distribution is web-based. You can access it from your phone. You can set up things like email subscriptions to be able to easily get access to that data and work with that data. I included a bit of a diagram at the bottom there, just kind of showing how you can kind of set this up using the bridge software that comes with the BI tools. So this kind of really basic automation is something that we can set up and demo in a really short period of time. Like you can typically get something going, in about a week, and you may already have something going that does this type of work. So let's kind of go from hypothetical to like an actual concrete example. So here's a job cost report that you may have seen something similar in the past, where it's detailing all of your cost codes on a job, and kind of showing you what your estimates were, your actuals were, how you're tracking against budget. This is just page one. Typically these things go on for dozens, if not hundreds of pages for the entire job. We've seen people take these PDFs and mark them up and add lines into them so that they can read across and try to figure things out. It's not a super friendly report. So let's go, and I'm going to switch over to BI tool to kind of show you what that same report would look like connected up to Tableau. So inside of Tableau, I'm logged into my web interface here. Just username and password, using our enterprise authentication to kind of get in here, and I can click through and I can open up this dashboard now. And so once this loads, you can kind of see this is more of a project manager's view for a single job. But along the top here, we've got some original margin, expected margin, what that was in percentage, what our contract looks like, how much we've billed. So this is kind of at the end of the job here. And just start tracking things. So, I can see what my original budget looked like, my current budget, estimated cost of completion, actual cost to date. If I want to switch, I can switch over to another job very easily. So here's another job that I have. Starting to break things down by cost type here. So, I've got my different cost types. I can start drilling into each of these cost types and say, okay, I'm actually going over budget on my equipment here. So let's go and start looking into that. So when I click on equipment, you can see how the screen refreshes here, and I can see all of the cost codes related to equipment. And I've started doing some highlighting, so I can see, these are the ones that are over budget. And then any of these ones that are over budget, I can actually click through on those And in the right here, it's going to show me the actual charges that we're hitting that cost code. So I've kind of gone from very high level, where am I at with my job, down to actual transactions without even leaving one screen. I can do this all in one screen. I'm not having to jump around. The other thing here at the bottom of the screen here, I can see a timeline of my costs. So this is a nice little timeline by month of the costs that are hitting the job. I can do that again by, overall or by cost type. And then I can actually switch that view over. If I want to switch to a cumulative view, I can see how it's tracking against the budget there. So it's a really nice dashboard that gives that overall picture of the job without having to jump between screen to screen. Again, this is something that can be refreshed on a daily basis. I'm getting new data all the time on my job. Looking at some of the other stuff, this is related to cash flow and the billings. So you can see, again, month by month here, what does that look like? So I can see for the first few months of the job, I did have a few costs coming in here, and then kind of did a billing in May. Again, no billing, and then kind of got caught up then in the month of July. That's kind of hard to see with the bars, but if you look at the cumulative view along the top here, you can see as the job started out, I had my costs coming in, and then I started getting some revenue on this job. And then kind of from that billing in July, things look good on this job. The billings have stayed ahead of the cost. I've stayed ahead of the curve on things here. So I can see that this job is kind of in good health, just in a visual way, and the story of this job and its billings. So that's kind of neat. You don't necessarily want to just look at the data that's in the database. You might want to look at data from other places as well. So I've got a second one here that I want to bring up here. This is a forecasted revenue. So this is where we can kind of take your data from your ERP and your historicals. So in the dark blue here, I've got my actuals on this job that's coming out of the ERP. But I've also combined that with data from my CRM and my pipeline. So you can see I've got my actuals, I've got my backlog, and I've got some keys prospects and stuff that's coming out of the pipeline. So you can kind of see tracking, kind of a year into the past and a year into the future, a couple of years into the future, kind of from one dashboard, and whether your revenue is going to stay the same, whether it's growing. Of course, you can go and break this down by different, business units, look at it by different divisions. You could even look at it by companies and things like that. Any of these months here, you can go and click on any of them and kind of see the breakdown of where that revenue is coming from. So these are the jobs that are going to make up that revenue in any given month. So it's a really nice dashboard. And then the key thing here is that, again, we're taking data from multiple sources, bringing it together. So you don't have to go run a report in one place and in another place and try to manually bring that together. It's doing that for you. I'm just going to give you one more example here of some of these ones that we kind of can build out pretty quickly. I do have kind of 6 on here. There's things like, open payables, open receivables, subcontractor spend history, what you're spending with different subcontractors. I'm just going to bring up timesheet history. Excuse me. So timesheet history is another one to just give some visibility, where hours are being spent. You can go here, pick a job, and see exactly what time is being charged to that job. You can drill down and look at a specific month. So if I want to look at March here, I can see for the month of March, who are the actual guys that are working on that job, how many hours they're putting in there, what their job titles are. This one's not showing it, but we've also done versions of this that include like rate information, things like that. So that you have, again, one place where you're going to get all of this, and it's getting new data all the time. So, basic automation. One of the challenges, so, like I said, we can deploy that in a week or a couple of weeks time. and get something up and running using your data. But then a lot of questions start coming in. So, number one is how are we controlling access to the data? So if you're logging into your ERP, there's definitely a bunch of controls built into that, so that people can only access the data that they're supposed to see, or the jobs that they're supposed to see. And the BI tools, effectively kind of get around that unless we build in some access controls. Second one that kind of comes up is the demand for fresh data. So lots of times, people are in that manual process, they're waiting until month end to get their data. And then we set up some BI tools and we say, okay, well, we're going to do refreshes nightly. And then they come back to us immediately with that kind of appetite for data now. And they say, well, we want to get it every hour. Or, our field guys are doing time entry for the previous day in the morning. So we want to be able to see that in the afternoon, how much time was worked on our jobs in the previous day. The challenge with that is, doing data refreshes can create a load on production systems, and we don't want to slow down the guys that are trying to process payroll because we're trying to query the timesheet data every 5 minutes. The other one is just combining that data from the other sources. So if you are using a third-party payroll system, being able to layer that onto your dashboard. So with some challenges there, we kind of introduced this idea of a data warehouse. And so there's lots of terminology out there. There's lake houses and data warehouses and data lakes, and I put this little definition in from Google, but the idea and the gist of it is that the data warehouse is giving a faster, efficient, modern storage for all your data. So it's a place where you can land all your data. It's an efficient, modern place. You get all the features of a database in 2025 to just get your data organized and collected in one place. And lots of people are talking about AI. Our experience as Onware is more with Salesforce and Microsoft than anybody else. And there's lots of technologies that these companies are introducing to enable different AI scenarios. With Salesforce, we have this idea of Tableau, and the next version of Tableau that's coming out, Tableau Pulse, and Agentforce is their kind of buzzword. With Microsoft, we have the idea of the Copilots and Power BI. Both of these platforms have tools that need to be able to get all your data. And if you have legacy systems that are storing that data, they're not going to connect directly. So setting up your own data warehouse enables you to kind of connect to a Salesforce Data Cloud or a Microsoft Fabric to be able to start using some of these modern tools. And so I want to show an example here of one of these AI-powered tools. So just give me a second here to join on my phone. And I'll be able to share one of the tools that we use internally. Now, the reason I use this as an example is because, we're a consulting business, and, hours is really important to us. Just like in a construction business, the hours that are being spent on jobs is really important, and keeping track of those hours is something that, you need to do. So if I go into Tableau on my phone here, what we have is a connection between our Salesforce data, where we're logging all of our hours, and our Tableau. So throughout the day, this is actually updating, and I've got my Tableau Pulse here. So this first chunk that you see on the screen here, where it's got the insight, is actually it's looking at all my data and is coming up with this AI-powered insight. And telling me, my hours this month have decreased significantly compared to last year. Human resources hours dropped substantially, but it's looking at all of my data and is coming up with these insights and trying to give me a useful summary of that. If I scroll down a little bit here, I've got some of the metrics that I'm following. So for this one, like I said, we're a consulting business. Billable hours is important for us. So we actually put in, some planning and stuff, and we'll have our goals entered, just like you'd have, budgets entered for your construction and your cost codes. So I can see here just from this metric that I've actually, met our goal for this month already. So we're 12 days left in the month, and we've already hit kind of the goal that we've set for ourselves. I get the comparisons with the prior period. I didn't have to build any of this. So this is all kind of being generated for me. We just kind of connect it up to the data, and it's creating these insights. And like you can see, it's bringing it to me on my phone. So I don't actually have to go and look for it. It's coming directly to me. If I have a question about my data, I can say which case had high billable hours. I just have to type on that, and it's actually going to go out and it's going to give me some details on that. Which username increased. You can click on any of these kind of questions about your data and see those answers right away. So that's Tableau Pulse. And that's a tool that comes with Tableau, but it's a fairly easy to deploy thing, and start making and taking advantage of those AI insights. So if I come back here now, how do we get there? Well, it's not just plug and play. To be able to like set up and work with these AI tools, you really need a clean data model. So some of the steps that you have to do to kind of get your clean data model is things like removing test data. So if you have like a test company set up, you don't necessarily want that to be sent to your AI. Maybe you have irrelevant data in your database, companies that are no longer active. Or if you've been using the same system for many years, pre-COVID, 10-year-old plus data is not necessarily something that you want to, be getting insights from just because it's not relevant anymore. One of the other challenges is just properly identifying and formatting the data. So things like, currency, identifying it as a currency, identifying dates properly is important, and looking up to other sources. So, for some of us and maybe the HR people, they know employee numbers off by heart, but most people are not. But that's what databases store. So, adding those lookups to the other sources, translating that employee number to an actual employee name is something important that we need to do when we're building our data models. And so what Onward has done is, we've worked on, this idea of creating rich data sets that combine all that data that would be adjusted into your data warehouse, doing cleaning, translation, and coming up with a nice job cost data set. So the example that I showed, that first example of that job cost dashboard, that would be powered off a job cost data set that we would build that has all the lookups. So it shows, nice cost type names, shows nice employee names, all that kind of stuff. And you can use that for a lot of different applications. So it's not just, Tableau and Power BI as your BI tools. You can also use that data for things like your project management software. So if you're doing an integration with Procore, you've got a nice clean data set that you can send over to Procore. And you don't have to go and do that manual work every time you go and integrate with a new piece of software. You're using that nice clean data set as the basis for your integration with other systems. And so for us, because we've been doing this for a while, we've developed this library of construction data sources. We know, which tables are relevant and which fields are relevant, and kind of establish this naming convention and basically a library of the different data sources that you can use when building out your BI and your dashboards. And that's one of the key things that we were always kind of thinking about is how can you reuse this, because we really don't want you to have to go and build a new data source every time you want to build a dashboard. We want to build that one job cost data set that's going to be used and powered all your dashboards and become that source of truth for the company. Because after we've gone through and we've done validation and made sure that data looks good, you want to be able to get the most value for that. There's one of the challenges with that Excel workflow that I showed way back at the beginning is that people will start questioning and saying like, where did this data come from? And oftentimes when we build the VI dashboard and start connecting the data, we compare that to an Excel that somebody has built, and we'll uncover these hidden things that they've done in their Excel. Oh, I've excluded all of these type of costs because I didn't think they were relevant, and they probably are relevant. So just having a source of truth that everyone trusts and can rely on is really important. So I wanted to give another kind of practical example of something that we've built. And this is not, something that would be possible with the BI tools right out of the box. This is where you really need to have that kind of data warehouse in place to be able to leverage data from different systems and work with it. So the challenge that was kind of brought to us is field workforce planning. And so saying that, we have all these jobs, how many guys are we going to need in the field? So there's a curve to model jobs that the Nika kind of came up with, and they distribute and they have available to their members. So we started with that curve, and we took jobs that were in progress from ECMS. So we would get the information what the current completion date is from the forecast, and how many hours are remaining in that job based on their budgets, and be able to curve those remaining hours and say, how many guys do we need for that? But that's not the whole story, because there's also the potential jobs. So, you've got your jobs that are in your backlog and the jobs that you've won, but you've also got potential jobs. And so to get that piece of the puzzle, we need to go out to the CRM. So we can go to the CRM, get information about those potential jobs, and using the contract amounts, try to get a rough idea of how many hours are going to be required for that. So that kind of adds to that picture. And then the third piece that we had here was the idea of ad hoc jobs. So what if scenarios? So maybe you have a big potential job and you want to know what that's going to look like. Being able to enter those on the fly and see the tool kind of respond to that with all your other data overlaid is a really interesting picture. And this is kind of what it looks like. Unfortunately, I don't have a live demo of this one, but I just want to kind of show that. You can kind of see here the idea of the awarded projects being in blue, the ad hoc projects. So those are those kind of what if scenarios being in the yellow, and then the opportunity projects from the CRM showing in green. And this was just kind of an overall picture, but that's saying, today, probably around 3,000 guys needed, projecting out into January. If all of these kind of came through, we might need between 4,000 and 5,000 guys. So we need to go and add to our workforce. And if we don't kind of execute on some of these pipeline jobs, we can kind of see that dropping off over the course of the next year. So a sales tool, an HR tool, just some really interesting insights about the business from a BI tool. But that's combining stuff from many different data sources into a single interactive dashboard. And so kind of moving on from that, when you're setting up a data warehouse, one of the goals is really to kind of modernize that infrastructure. And one of the nice things that this is kind of looking to specifically like cloud solutions, but you're not necessarily buying big hardware and SQL servers that would be deployed within your organization. You're able to leverage some of the stuff from the cloud. There's really no upfront commitment in terms of like, I have to commit to like a big piece of hardware and a big software license. It's really pay for what you use. So you're able to kind of set this stuff up without, the historical kind of investment that was needed in some of it. So this is kind of what the overall picture looks like. So this is a little bit different than what we saw in the original one where we had the basic one, but the idea is that you have your source systems here. where that data is living, and then we're streaming it in real time out of that source system. So INRS's data warehouse kind of sits there and grabs that data from your system as you're creating it and modifying it and sending it along to the data warehouse database. That's can be sitting in the cloud. It doesn't necessarily have to be sitting into the cloud. You could also have it on premises if you wanted, but that becomes this central database where all of your data starts to live. And then that provides access to things like the BI tools. So I've got Power BI here because it's sitting with Microsoft, but other tools like I showed Tableau can get access to that data very easily. And just kind of layering other pieces on top of that. That's not just limited to your ERP data, like I said. So there's other tools there like payroll systems. So UKG, for example, Procore, for example. The data warehouse can also take that data and read that data back into your central data warehouse. So it's not just a one direction, it's a bi-directional thing. And that data can be used and consolidated in the data warehouse. So you're not necessarily tied to a specific vendor or a specific solution. It gives you a lot of flexibility so that you can make changes and make choices. So if I kind of go on to my next slide here, like we said, once you're putting the data warehouse in place, you've got that near real-time access to data because we're now not doing big refreshes overnight to get new data into your BI tool. We're streaming that data in real time. So it's not, I say near real time, and what near real time kind of means is a couple minutes typically. It depends on data flows and things like that. But best case scenario is within a couple minutes, you're getting your data showing up in your BI tools. The other thing that Mike mentioned off the top was just that historical snapshots of data. So one of the things that the production systems aren't doing is necessarily keeping like that historical snapshot. What did it look like last week? What did it look like last month? And building that into the data warehouse, you can create those snapshots to be able to see data at any point in time. Third point here was it also serves as a backup. Because we're taking that data in real time out of the source systems and putting it into the data warehouse, if any of your providers did have an outage or an issue, you do have a copy of your data, and that's a copy that you guys own and you guys control. Like I mentioned, that gives you kind of less lock-in to cloud providers. Procore is an example. It gets expensive. You're putting a lot of your data in their system. Maybe at some point in the future you want to change, right? Well, they've got all your data, unless you have a data warehouse or some kind of solution in place where you've got a copy of that data, so that you can take that now, continue to access that data, end the contract with that cloud provider, and you've got a copy of everything that you need. The last one here was faster time to integration with the new software. I talked about this a little bit. The idea of building these data sources, you've got your nice clean data sources. If you were implementing like a UKG and you needed to get them integration in a clean data, instead of going back to the source system, cleaning up your data all over again and trying to put that in place, that's where you can use your data warehouse, and the views that you've created in your data warehouse can feed directly into those new softwares that you're integrating with. So it just provides, on many different levels, you have this nice data platform where all your stuff is stored. It's become accessible and really usable, rather than being locked into, a specific legacy database that you don't really have good visibility on or good access to. So those are the kind of the key things that I wanted to cover in the presentation today. I think we want to kind of give some time to have questions from the audience and be a little bit interactive here. So just I'll stop sharing and maybe we'll open it up to some questions.
If anybody does have a question, please raise your electronic hand on the Teams dashboard.
There's also a Q&A. You can just type a question into the questions box there, and it'll show up for us.
Fraser, I think you did a well enough job and nobody has questions.
That's good. Or the questions come after. That's usually what when I'm reflecting after the fact, that's when I come up with my questions. So we'll have the contact information, and you can always reach out and send us an email if you do have any questions or thoughts that kind of come up after the fact.
Okay, well, Fraser, thank you for that. Very informative. I appreciate it. So, everyone, thank you for attending today. And again, if you have any questions, there'll be a link sent out shortly with the recording from this. We'll provide contact information if you got questions who you can reach out to get additional information. We again are very excited about the data warehouse and the features and functions that can provide to you via Onware's tool set. And I think everyone would agree that the depth of knowledge that Fraser's team has is pretty incredible when it comes to getting data out of the systems. That being said, I'm going to do one more shameless plug for our webinar on July 9th for the Arcora integration. We're very excited about that. We've been working with them for several years, well over 5 or 6 years, I think. Again, providing onboarding benefits, updates, things of that nature. And we can also provide the integration mapping for that into our data warehouse as well, so you can track that there. That said, here is the contact information. Again, this will be sent out to you. You can reach out to Jordan over at Onware or Chris with us for any content or questions that you might have. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much and appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for setting it up, Mike, and hosting here today. We really appreciate the opportunity to be able to meet with everyone and speak here.
Absolutely appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone.